Hello and welcome to Star USA Training. Today is Tuesday, August 16th. We are recording the webinar. The recording and other materials will be made available after the broadcast. Everyone's currently muted. The Q&A feature is available. If you have questions, chat's also there. I will answer questions throughout and take more at the end. I know we had a lot of questions from our registrants about how to run recurring reports and making custom reports. This webinar is ACE 101. We have some additional information on the fancy reports later. You are also welcome to stay on and ask questions toward the end if you'd like. There are credits available for this webinar. Email train@starusa.org after the webinar with your email address for NCB FAA. Today's webinar is an overview of ACE and the ways that you can use it. We are a consulting, advice, training, and services firm in the field of international trade and compliance. We provide an array of services to importers, exporters, brokers, carriers, and forwarders of many different sizes and skill levels. My name's Jo Harper. I'm a principal with Star USA. I have my customs broker license, and I have been in the international trade compliance business for over a decade. I hope you learned something from today's session. And again, if there are deeper things that you would like to talk about that we do not hit on this session, feel free to ask questions and also let us know you're interested in the additional, maybe ACE 201 or ACE 401. We're going to talk about ACE as a concept, how you apply reports, and making that data work for you. Because a lot of the time we have clients who get the information and they have no idea what to do with it. The idea for ACE started in 1993 with the Customs Mod Act. That was based around the idea that the trade needed automation and electronic processing. In 2001, there was a $1.3 billion 5-year contract for creating ACE. Functionality was delayed for it. ACE was supposed to be complete in 2007, and it was originally a replacement for ACS. ACS was launched in 1984 and was close to capacity. It handles millions of import entries, representing about $1 trillion in value yearly. It's unreliable, paper intensive, not integrated, and was very port specific. So the idea was to move from shipment by shipment to account-based processing. Then you would pay duties and fees monthly instead of by transaction. That functionality came around in August 2004. Historically, importers got their data using a Freedom of Information access request. And that came in the form of ITRAC, or Importer Trade Activity Report. And you would pay money for it, usually around $500, and then you would get that information mailed to you on a CD. And we still have non-resident importers who do not have ACE accounts who get that report from CBP. If you have an ACE account, you can go into ACE, into your reports, and download the ITRAC data directly from ACE, which is great. Why is ACE so hard? Because if you are around ACE, you know that it's still not fully there. It is technology that's integrating multiple various government functions. It has to hit technology, it has to be private, and it's also kind of a political landmine. It was originally focused solely on commerce, but now it encompasses security too. Before probably 2015, it was known industry-wide as fairly useless, confusing, and really incomplete. Then came the Trade Facilitation Agreement in 2013. And in 2014, President Obama issued executive order called Streamlining the Export-Import Process for America's Businesses. And the concept of single window was widely discussed. And the direction was to complete it by the end of 2016. The US was the third country to ratify the WTO TFA. And the premise of that was that bureaucratic delays are the biggest burden for moving goods across borders. So they wanted to internationally simplify, modernize, and harmonize export and import. The TFA fully entered into force in February 2017 after it was ratified by 2/3 of the WTO membership. The goals there were to expedite the movement, release, and clearance of cargo, enhance cooperation between customs and other authorities, and provide for technical assistance. Developed countries who signed on were committed to providing that capability from the date it took effect, whereas developing countries had a year to put into effect only the provisions that they could, and then a transitional period after that. Some of the stated goals were to streamline and automate processes, eliminate paper, and facilitate trade community compliance with regulations. The details were saying the trade community has to communicate with CBP and then create these documents and then go out to all these different partner government agencies. Well, the idea is that now trade can go to ACE, which will communicate with the various PGAs and CBP in order to streamline communication. Now, some of the goals that they're not telling you about are that this single window is a boon for enforcement efforts. So it allows them to identify anti-dumping duties that are not being assessed, audit classifications from specific foreign manufacturers or sellers. They can pull up at a glance what every single person, every single importer in the US is using for classification from the same exporter and know who is maybe incorrect. And it allows them to identify risk areas very quickly. Most government agencies participate in ACE. There are only a few forms that are not paperless. More than 250 forms are automated. All of the import manifest, cargo release, post-release, export, and PGA integration functionalities are live in ACE today. Some of the more recent updates were modernized drawback, reconciliation, statement processing to some effect, liquidation, and the protest module, which is great. And then they are recently integrating the modernized portal for ACE. The single window expedites transaction processing. They estimate 775,000 fewer hours in processing time for trade and 5.5 million fewer hours in processing for the CBP community. It also reduces paper. 270 forms are automated and 48 partner government agencies, and saves approximately $1.75 billion due to processing efficiencies in fiscal year 2020, are the estimates that CBP puts out. Functionalities that are being worked on this year and in the future are collections release, e-certifications for quota. The second phase of the portal will enhance the references tab, so linking to things like other PGA documents, etc. Document uploads and blanket declarations. Broker reporting, specifically broker reporting that's going to tie in to the upcoming customs broker rules that are being updated, as well as national broker permit. Phase 3 of the portal will allow for user access management, statement functionality, and in-bond processing. Then they're going to do a beta for global business identifier only for cargo release, vessel entrance and clearance, ocean house bill of lading, currency exchange in ACE that will give up-to-date information on how to fill out entries with currency changes, USMCA retail sales indicators, specifically for drawback provisions 56 and 70, and broker fee automation, which is again, some of the customs broker modernization steps. You apply for ACE using specific forms. So you want to use Chrome or Edge now. That was effective as of about February this year. Internet Explorer is decremented. So if you're using Safari, it may not work as well. So you want to make sure you're using Chrome or Edge. There are many application types. You can apply separately for a protest filer account. It's a fairly simple one web page data fill in on the organization and the account owner. There are links here on the slide to the form and the video walkthrough. You would do this if your company does not yet have an ACE account and all you want to do is file protests. Then there is an ACE exporter account form that's also fairly simplified. It's approximately the same length as the protest filer account. There's a link to the form and a link to the video walkthrough on completing it. Again, you would complete this only if you do not have an overarching ACE account and you only want to do exporter reports and file EEIs online yourself. We have a webinar coming up later this fall on filing EEIs specifically. So if you have questions about that, they will be answered in a couple months. Or you can email us, that's fine too. You don't have to wait 2 months. If you already have an ACE account, the trade account owner can request export functionality within the account. So you would go to the drop-down under accounts in the legacy portal, and you'll see more of those differences coming up, and press go, then select create exporter and continue. And then you would fill in company information. You would have to then, there's another button that's request report access, and you would click that. There's a form you need to download, sign, and email in, and then you're in. But it's a much simpler process once you already have an account to go through then filling out the entire ACE application. If you are going as a broker, an importer, a cargo facility, etc., then there's a fillable PDF that has 4 sections. The account information itself is 3 full pages. Most of it can be skipped because it doesn't apply, but you should read through and make sure it doesn't apply. This drop-down, it doesn't look like a drop-down, but if you click on it, it is only to be used if you're requesting a change to an already existing account, which is something you might use if you have an ACE account for the company and that was 25 years ago and the person who made it no longer works there and you need to take it over. Then you would request a change using the option for trade account owner or point of contact. You can also change company name, company officer, company address, or the primary account identifier. So this sections you would fill in. You need to make absolutely sure that the company name is the exact legal name and it should match what is on file for your CBP 5106. So if what is on file with customs for your bond or the 5106 does not match what's on file with the IRS or your incorporation documents, you want to get that fixed. And you want to get it fixed before you complete this form and apply for an ACE account. It is a headache and a half if they don't match. I don't even want to tell you how I know. So most clients are going to be importer. If that's you and that's your only functionality, you can ignore the next few pages. You have to select only one primary view, even if you are a broker, an importer, self-filer, and a surety company. So you would select primary. You can also identify other for your secondary items. And you would enter your IOR or your tax ID in these boxes. If you have multiple boxes there, but start with your primary tax ID in the first box. You need to make sure that you select one of these as primary. Then these are the next two pages, and you can see there's service provider, either software vendor, port authority, surety agent. There's facility operator or FTZ operator. So if you have an FTZ as your business, you would want to make sure to include it. Cartman, lighterman, and then there are carriers. Then you have account owner designation. Most of the time, almost all of the time, you're going to fill this in as a legal entity, not as an individual. If it's for your company, it's part 2 for your legal entity. It's a corporate ownership of the account. That's going to facilitate smoother transition if the trade account owners have to leave the company. The next section is point of contact. So the point of contact is going to be the person who is actually responsible for the daily administration of the account. That's going to be someone who's available, etc. Then you sign. You can type it in and identify that you're legally authorized to bind and submit it that way, or you can print out the completed and physically sign and scan it in. You should not share user accounts. The new portal, the modernized portal, has two-factor authorization to make it especially difficult to do. So if you want multiple people to pull reports or have access, you should add them as users once you have an account. There was a question about whether we should submit a change to the ACE application if there's a change to the officer named on the application. If that officer is no longer with the company or is no longer an officer, then yes, you should update that because they can reach out to that person and you want to make sure there is an up-to-date contact available. In general, ACE is a free access point. It's designed to connect customs, trade partners, and the partner government agencies. It lets you file ISFs. If you have an exporter account, it lets you file EEIs. Import truck manifests, you can file protests, etc. You could run reports, which is one of the biggest things, respond to CBP forms, fantastic processing, create declarations, and manage your ACE accounts. So you have to have an account, and then you have to create users and allocate visibility to them. This is a good graphic for the difference between the account owner, the proxy account owner, and then account users. Users, your employees, don't need to apply for their own account. You can, as the account owner or the proxy account owner, set up a profile for them, and that is much simpler. Once the application is fully completed, you can email it to aceapplications@cbp.dhs.gov. You should include any relevant information if there's changes. Give them a little bit of narrative. They are human beings who are getting thousands of emails a day, and if you help them understand what you're looking for instead of them having to dig through a 7-page application, that's nice. Processing generally happens within a week. It depends on the volume of requests and how staffed they are. And then CBP reaches out to the trade account owner and the point of contact with information on setting up an account. The shared secret is usually your ACE hash ID, which is the letters and numbers provided by CBP. That's also your legacy ACE ID, that they would call it. Since you're sending a fillable PDF, we recommend that once it's complete, you save a copy of the fillable and then print it to PDF and save a copy, and you send that one, or you send the printed, signed, and scanned copy. After you get your email, you want to retrieve your password, your temporary password. You're going to go to ACE and set up your questions and create a new password. There are specific password rules make sure you copy that new password and save it in some sort of password management, because when you leave that page, it's gone. When you set up the modernized portal account, you need to have a legacy ACE ID to link the modernized portal to the OG portal. If you have not received one or you don't have one, reach back out to ACE via email. So this is ace.cbp.gov. The old portal used to be ace.cbp.dhs.gov. And you're always going to use trade user login. You're not employed by CBP. Then you're going to use the email that you signed up with. If this is your first time signing in, create an account. Don't bother putting in a password. If you already have an account, you will get your two-factor authentication from your email. It's usually a 6-digit code. Then you'll get this every single time, and you'll want to accept terms. If you do not accept terms, you will not be able to use ACE. This is the modernized portal. There are news telling you what's coming up. There is the CSMS, the Cargo System Service Messaging System, that gives the CSMS that CBP has recently published. So it's things they want the trade to know about. And then there's also ACE support. These training resources, their videos and cards are exceptional. I link to several of them in the resources page on these slides. And in general, they are well set out. The people recording them have great voices and they give you good information. I highly recommend the training resources and support. They're very helpful. If you have accounts and you've recently viewed them, they'll be here. Under accounts, this is a drop down and it gives all the different account types. So broker, carderman, lighterman, etc. Then there's an account search where you can go and search for the various accounts you have access to. But generally, right now, you'll want to use the references. So if you select references, Legacy ACE is the only item in there currently. One of the things that we said was that they're going to start fleshing this out with more information, but right now, Legacy ACE is all there is. And this is the only way you can get to the Legacy ACE portal. So you want to select that. It will open in a new tab. And you will then be able to see all the various accounts that you have access to. Once you select one, you will select and continue. Then you will be here. You'll have home, accounts, references, and tools. Tools tends to be how you manage your users, etc. Accounts is your drop-downs, whatnot, and references are things like active, AD/CVD, HTS reference, MID reference, etc. So that's a handy tab. Generally, you're going to want to go to accounts. Oh, notice you can also see if there's any PGA documents that need to be responded to, and you will have any CBP 28s or the like under here. Now, they're not keeping these news quite as updated as they are the modernized portal. You can see the last thing was April of 2021. So once you've selected accounts up at the top, you'll notice that that's in a new screen and you'll be able to select various account types, whether that's broker, importer, exporter, or the like. You'll also have, originally you'll be on the account page and you'll be able to view the information for your top account. It'll show the names of your contacts and you'll be able to see the names of the accounts below. If you want to go to reports, you'll need to select reports for the account type that you have selected. Make sure that you push go after you select the account type, otherwise it will not provide you with any details. You'll also be able to go to mode of communication and set up various notifications, etc. Then you can add a user by signing into ACE as the point of contact or the TAO. You get there by selecting the Tools tab, going to User Access. If it's someone that does not have an ACE account, in this dropdown, you'll select Create New User, complete the contact info, and select the account that you want them to have access to. So you can select whether it's proxy trade account owner, trade account user, or whatnot. Then tell them whether you want them to have read-only or full access and save. If they already have an ACE account, whether it was from a previous company or an existing company, you will find existing user, enter first and last name, type in ACE ID, and complete the steps. So without having automated broker interface, you can file ISF, file an import truck manifest, respond to CBP 28s and 29s, file in bond, create blanket declarations, upload forms, respond to requests for documents, and file export or commodity data. If there are items in blue, they cannot be completed via ABI. So protest reports and account and periodic monthly statement information are all only able to be done in ACE. Without ABI, you can't file entry, you can't file entry summaries, you cannot file drawback, and currently you cannot make post summary corrections. CF28 notifications generally show up on the Home tab, and then you can access them by clicking on them, but they show up in the Home tab. You can also pull reports to see if you have information out on you. All right, reports. You want to use Chrome or Edge. You want to make sure that you have selected the type of account you want from the drop-down menu. If your system requirements are not set up, you may have to work with IT. For example, you need to have a PDF file viewer, your internet needs to be capable enough, you need to use Microsoft Office products, and you have to be able to turn your pop-up blocker off. Some companies that can be very difficult. And then you want to pull smaller amounts of data. If you were pulling a 5-year report and your company has, 20 entries, 150 entries a month, that's going to take a very long time. If you've only done 20 entries in 5 years, you're probably okay to pull a 5-year report. So you want to give bite-sized information. So there's a question about how long CF28 stay in your ACE portal. You have 30 days from the date a CF28 is issued to respond to it. If you do not resolve it out, you can still view it in there for several years, but it will have been expired. The time that you have to answer it will have been expired before that. So you want to make sure of that. You can still see them for multiple years and have access to them, but they will not show as new and fresh unless you get a new and fresh one. So if you are under your account tab, you want to select importer, press go. That will take you to the accounts page. You will have to click on reports in order to get access to reports. You may have a drop down here by your top account that lets you drill into a specific sub account to be able to pull reports. So if you're a large company and you have multiple companies under your top account, then you can click there to just go into one, or you can keep your top account so that you can pull from all of them. Then you need to select Launch Tool and make sure your pop-up blocker is off. You will have a new item come up that has your overview. Now, This may be your view, or you may be someone who the documents view is the top view, in which case you will have to open up all these various folders in order to get to your specific reports that you're looking for. You can verify that your role is correct. If you're in as importer and you're trying to get to exporter accounts, that's not going to be very helpful. Your preferences should be filled in. Again, training tends to have decent information. Sometimes there's tips. These are all the various folders that contain options of reports. You cannot switch workspaces in the same session. You have to log out and log back in. Otherwise, when you come back, it gives you the same report options. So if you're in looking at importer stuff, you cannot just switch over to exporter without fully logging out and logging back in. With the modernized portal, that's even more painful because then you have to log out of both of them and log back into both of them. But it is the way we suffer. So there are multiple options. You can see there's cargo entries, cargo release line details. Then there are HTS reports that give you all the valid HTS and their PGA flags. There are ISF reports where you can view ISFs that were filed. Here is where you can select iTrack and get your iTrack data. PGA message set has reports of all of the PGA messages and flags that may come up. And then there's revenue. Entry summary tends to be where a lot of your details are. So we have the entry summary new section, which has entry summary lines by HTS, by filer code. These names have updated. They are now ES for entry summary instead of AM. AD/CVD entries and reference. We have drawback reports, liquidation reports, reconciliation, and trade remedy. Under exporter reports, there are fewer reports than on the importer. AES 201 and 202. 202 tends to be the one that gives you the most information. It's USPPI. 201 is good if you are a self-filer, but 202 is going to give you the most detailed information, and 203 will only give you routed transactions. 202 will also give you routed transactions. The one that we tend to pull the most is ES 003. That's what AM 008 turned into. ES 002 is also very good. You can use wildcards for searching with an asterisk if you want to. The shorter the date range you search, the less likely it is to time out. So you do not want to search a 20-year period, or your report is very likely to time out. We love and usually run ES 003 for importer transactions and AES 202 for exporter. You can resize this box to make it smaller or larger if you can't read everything. And the refresh values symbol lets you update your parameters and rerun the report. If you ran a report, if it's a one-time quick review, you do not want to push save. What you want to do is export it. And this little square with an up and out arrow lets you do that. And you can save it in PDF, you can save it in Excel, etc. Import reports do not include shipments that are entered under a courier IOR. So if you have, for example, FedEx or UPS do your imports and they don't flag your importer of record number, then that will not show under your reports. So it may not encompass all of your import activity, but it will show everything that's done under your IOR. Export reports do not include Canada shipments or low value shipments because EEIs are not required for those unless a license is required. A question about a company that had a CF28 that was resolved by a broker and then received confirmation from CBP that it was accepted and closed. The notification dropped off the Tools tab, then reappeared. Does it need to be responded to on the ACE portal even though it was accepted and closed? No, if it was accepted and closed, that's okay. You can probably mark it as completed on the Tools tab, or you can just save it there for historical viewing purposes. That's up to you. So you have a report. What are you going to do with it? CBP tends to flag if you have a ton of HTS, or you maybe only have one HTS and your items are more varied than that. They will definitely flag if you are importing products that are subject to anti-dumping or countervailing duty. You want to make sure that your MIDs are consistent. And if you do get your customs notices like your CF28 via ACE, you have to check them frequently. And you want to make sure that if your export requires a license, that the party who filed the EEI linked it. So you may want to look at routed transaction indicator and check for license number and value in Schedule B to all be accurate. You should be aware customs is working on revenue protection and consumer safety. So they want to prevent terrorism and get their money. That's their goal. So they're going to be watching classification. They're going to be watching value, looking at country of origin, free trade agreements, etc. So if you are purchasing and importing from a related party, they will check to make sure that the related party indicator is claimed, and then they may ask you to prove that your value is accurate. You want to make sure that your contact info in ACE is up to date. And if your MID from the same manufacturer is changing constantly, that's not a good look. That's happening less and less as MIDs become more automated and you can select the MID in ACE, which is great. You also want to look for money saving opportunities for your company. So you want to review countries of origin and see if they are FTA eligible, if the products could be brought in duty-free. If you are exporting what you import without much change to it, or even with change to it, then there's potential for duty drawback. If you are doing TIBs, make sure you're closing them out. You can also run reports. You should run reports, especially if you have minimal broker contact, to review and make sure that your broker is claiming the correct type of entry and not using TIB just because something's being returned for repair. If you have opportunity for FTA, that will save you on merchandise processing fee. And for Section 301, you can check and see if there are any available exclusions for 301. You should also make sure that your entered value does not include the ocean freight. So you're not paying duty on freight. That wasn't always such a terrible thing, but ocean freight has gotten to be huge lately. And if you're paying 25% on a $20,000 container ocean freight, that's a good chunk of change. So you want to watch out for that. Internal red flags, make sure that your accounting and finance team have access to statement process. You should be reviewing periodically to make sure that your broker is filing correctly and that they are using the right HTS, they're using the right countries of origin, they're claiming FTAs when you provide the information, that your value is correct, etc. And then if you are looking at exports, make sure that the people you are selling to have been fully screened and you are confident in your export to them, that you're doing your restricted party screenings and saving those documents, and you would not worry at the government knowing who you're selling to. And that the party in ACE matches up with the party you screened, especially if there is a third party. Here's some of the resources. There's the website, ACEpedia, basics, info notice, some details on single window and deployment schedule. The training portal is great. The application and the web address for the new ACE, and then some information specifically on ACE reports. If you have questions about your data, we're happy to work with you on creating red flags specific to your company and review that data with you. Question, does ACE update when a post-summary correction is made to reflect the change? Generally, yes. There are also reports you can pull to show if a PSC has been filed. So there are post-summary correction reports that allow you to see how many versions were filed and what was changed. Are the listed resources sufficient for ACE training if a company has export savvy staff? It depends on what you are training them to do. If they are sufficient for training people on how to create an ACE account, how to run reports, how to fill in EEIs, they are not necessarily sufficient for helping people understand how to maximize it for their company interests or how to identify the correct information for those circumstances. Hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll talk later.